Okay, so in today's tutorial, we want to look at how to write or export data from R to some CSV files, text files, and also some other data files like Spss, STATA, and also SAS, right? So first of all, we can define our variables. So let's say define variables. Let's say we need gender, right, and we want to sample. We want to create this data, this variable, by using the sample function. So we want to sample 1 to 2, where 1 is for male, 2 is for female, and also we want the size to be 30. So we just need 30 observations, and we want to say replacement should be true, right? So let's see this. Let's run this. So let's see gender. So here we are, but we want to change this to a factor so that the levels 1 can denote male, 2 can denote female. So let's do that. So I'm going to change this to a factor and say gender, just to override the previous name. Then I'm going to say labels, right, labels to be M for male, then F for female. So the first one is going to be for male, second one is going to be for female, right? So let's run this. Right, so let's look at gender now. So here we go. So the 1 is for male, 2 is for female, 1 for male, 2 for female, and it continues in that order. We have, right. So once we have this variable created, let's look at another variable. Let's say I want to create age. Also use the sample function. Here we want it to range between 18 to let's say 50, right? The size should be 30, and also replace can be true. So let's say this. So we have it stored in our environment. Then the next variable that we would like to create is, let's say, height. This we want it to be in meters, so we are going to run to 2 decimal place. We are going to use the random uniform generator, runif, and say we need a size of 30, right? And we want the minimum should be, let's say, 1.20 meters. That's 1.20 meters. Then the maximum should be, let's say, 2.40 meters, right? So let's say this. So here we go. It's stored in our environment. Oh no, there should be 2 decimal place. Yeah. So here we go. Yeah. So nice. Okay. So once we have these variables created, we can now create our data frame. So create data frame. So I'm gonna name this data frame as df and say data.frame and put in the variables gender, age, and height. Alright, so let's say this. Alright, so let's look at our data frame df. Run this. Alright, so here we are. We have 30 observations, and these are the variables gender, age, and height. Alright, so now we want to look at how we can export this data to, let's say, a text file or some CSV file and other files that we'll be looking at. So let's start with text file. So we want to export our data to a text file. So the extension for this is txt. But before we start with this, we have to get our working directory, or we have to set a working directory where we want all these data files to be stored. So let's basically say we want to set a working directory. Right, first of all, you can check where basically all your folders will be stored, so by using the get working directory. So if you run this, basically this is the folder, this is the path that I'm going to have all my data files stored. If you want to maintain it, you can choose to use it, but I want to change this path and use a different path, so I'm gonna say set working directory, and I have, let me go to my, this is the place that I want all the data files to be stored, so I'm just gonna click here, right, and copy the path, copy, so I can move back. Then I'm going to use a double quote and paste, but you have to add another command, that's the backslash command. It should be double for each, so double, double, and double, double, right. So I'm gonna set, okay, now we can look at the working directory. Now it has changed from this to that, right, so we are good to go. Now let's start with exporting the data frame to this text file. So how do we go by it? We can say write, I'm going to use the function write.table, right. So once we have this, I'm going to name the first syntax is for the data frame that you have in R, so df, and we are going to give a file. The file is the path that we have already set in here, so but we have to add the name of the file that we want the data to be of in this path. So I'm gonna say I want the name of the basically the name of the data to be, let's say data, yeah, okay, just data. So, but I want it to be a text file, so I'm going to end it with txt, that's extension, right? And this should be in double quotes, right? So we are good to go. And I think we have to also add one more command, like the row names should be set false, right? Because we don't need the row names. We just need this. We just need this data frame without the row names, but we can maintain a column name. So let's say column name should be true. Then we can also use the field separator string, SCP, right? So we can space this. We just, right, or sometimes you can use the table format. Any of them should be pretty well good for you to have it stored in your working directory. So once we have this, let's try and run this. So I'm gonna run this. Alright, so I'm gonna move back to my folder. So yeah, I have stored as a text document. I can open it to view it. Alright, so here we are. So we are good to go. You can also use the table format, right, the tab, and you see how it works. So I'm gonna run this and go back, open it. So with this, it spaces as compared to the previous one, right? So that's basically how to export the data to a text file. Now, assuming I want to export the data to a CSV file, I'm gonna copy this same syntax that I have and paste. So I'm gonna change this to CSV, to a CSV file. So I'm gonna change the name to write.csv and change this extension to .csv. Right, I don't need this, right? So let me, yep, I think we are good to go. So once I have this, I'm gonna also export this data to a CSV file. Let's run it. So let me run it. Alright, so let me go back to my folder. So I now have it stored as a comma separated values file, and I can open it if you want to look at how it will look like in the CSV file. Right, so whilst we wait for it to open, we can also look at the other data files like SPSS, the STATA and SAS. So let me copy this and paste. So let's say we want to export the data to SPSS, right? SPSS, or let's say SAS or STATA, right? Or STATA files. Then we need a package. With this, we have to add some package. So I'm gonna use the Haven package, right? So it has opened, and let's check. Close this. Alright, so that's what this the CSV file. So this is how it will look like, right? Which is quite pretty good. Right, so let's go back. Now I want to export the data to SPSS, SAS or STATA file. We need a package called Haven. So Haven, the Haven package will help us to do that. So once we have this, we can if you don't have this package, then you have to install it by using the install.packages and use Haven, right? But because I have this installed, I'm going to comment on it and just load the package, right? So once I load a package, I'm going to change this to I want to start with SPSS, so I'm going to change this to SAF, right? So this is going to be SPSS format, or let's say SPSS file. So right, I'm gonna copy this and paste and change this to SAS. Don't forget to change the extension. This should be .saf.sas, right? You can just ignore this, right? Ignore the row names, and also instead of file, it prefers to use the path instead of file, so let's use path, right? Then I can copy this and do same for this data, which is DTA. So DTA, so this is going to be STATA, this is going to be SAS, right? So we are good to go. Let's run this together. So I think we are good to go. Alright, so let's go back to our folder. Yep, so here we have, that's the STATA file, and this one is SAS file, and this is going to be in the form of SPSS file, right? So I think we are good to go. So please, if you find value in this video, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and also turn on the notification to get more updates. Thank you for watching.